All right, today we're going to quickly talk about tables in HTML and how to put them on their website. We're going to make tables, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to make them look a little better than they do by default. So what is a table? Well, I went on the internet, and here's an example of a table. A table is just basically rows and columns of data. It's kind of poetic. It's like it goes back to our Excel spreadsheet unit, where basically all of our spreadsheets were just tables. They were rows and columns of stuff. So I don't know if you remember from Excel, but this table right here, here's one row, here's another row, here's another row, here's another row. So these are the rows. The rows are horizontal. So you can see this table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows. And it has columns. Columns go vertical. So it's got 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. We are more interested in rows. Rows is kind of where you're going to think about when you try to create these tables. So let's go into VS Code. Let's make a new folder. So we can go to File. Let's add a folder to the workspace. Let's go to your H drive, your ICT folder, your web design, and let's make a new folder. I don't know what number we're on, as long as it's called tables. Tables, and add. Nice empty folder. So let's add a file. We're only going to need to add one file for this project. So I press this button, and always, always, always index.html. That's the home page of our website. Doc type, HTML, title. Oops, I did that last video too. What is wrong with me? Head and body. Right click your file, open with live server, and we are in business. Slap that there, slap this here. All right, so the goal for this video, the goal is to learn how to do tables, and the best way to learn how to do tables is to make a table. So let's go ahead and make this table. So you're gonna go row by row. Rows are horizontal. So here is the first row of our table. So we're gonna code this. How do we do that? Well, this is something we want to see on our website. So we're going to go into the body section of our file. And if you want to make a table, who would have thought you're going to use an opening and closing table tag, just like that. We're going to go inside the tags, so you can press enter a few times. And now we have to actually make the table, because if you press Control S to save, you'll see that nothing's happened. Well, that's because we just have an empty table. We can start making the table. So let's take a look at our table. And the very first row is this one. So let's go ahead and make this row first. So if you want to make a new row in your table, in your table tags, you use TR. TR stands for table row. So this puts a row in our table. Now the first cell of this row has the word month in it. And most tables, kind of the first row, they are kind of like title cells. They're kind of like headings. See how the text is like bolded and bigger? Oh, I guess it's just bolded. So if we want to do the same thing for our table, we can use the TH tag, table header. So just like we had normal headings for like H1, H2, H3, H4 for our websites, our tables can have headings, TH. And this first cell says month. So I'm going to say month. And then I'm going to Control S to save. And there is the first cell of our table. Now the second thing is day. So that's the second thing in the row. So I'm going to press enter. I'm going to do a new table header and I'm going to say day. Control S to save. And there's day that pops up. We got one more thing in this row. We have the third cell, which is who. So I'm going to go table header, who. Control S to save. So I've completed the very first row of this table. So let's move down to the second row. Well, if I want to add a new row to my table, here was the first row, table row. So I go outside my first table row and I insert a new table row. So another opening and closing TR table row tag. The first thing in this row is January, or Jan for short. So I don't need to use a header anymore because that was kind of like the title of each column. So I'm just going to use a normal text for this row. So instead of using TH, I'm just going to use TD, which stands for table data. So the first thing is Jan. So I'm going to say Jan. Control S to save. And you should see that Jan pops up right below month. What's the next thing? 11. So I'm going to introduce a new table data for my second column. And I'm going to put the number 11. Control S to save. And you should see 11 slap right below day. Now this row has one last thing. It has an at the very end. So I'm going to TD an. And there we have it. There's the second row is complete. Let's do the third row. February, 15th, and Fred. So I need a new table row because we're on the third row. So I'm going to go TR and then TD for the first element here for February. FEB, Feb. Control S to save. Make sure it's under my month. The next one was 15. So TD 15. Control S to save. And Fred was the last thing. So new line, TD, Fred. I don't want to do all this. Let's do one more. So let's go up to the fourth row right there. So if you want to add a fourth row, we need to add another table row. The first data in this row is Feb. So I'm going to say Feb. The second thing in this row is the number 28. So I'm going to say TD 28. And last, we have the third and final thing in this row, which is Susan. So I'm going to go TD, Susan. All right, that's good enough. Hopefully you get the point. So if you're building a table, just go row by row. You'd go to the next row, next row, next row, keep going. Now we can make this table look a bit better, and the best way to do that is to introduce the style tag. And the style tag is used across everything you put on your website, not just borders, or not just tables. But because we have this table we want to make look better, that's a good time to talk about the style tag. So what you can do in your VS Code is you can collapse your table completely if you want by pressing that button, just to get it out of your way, if you want. And we've got head tags, we've got our body tags, but now what we can do is we can add in the style tags. And remember what the head tags do. It basically holds all the information about our website. So if I want to make things look better and stylize things, I'm going to put my style tags inside the head tags. So I've got table tags inside my body tags, and now I've got style tags inside my head tag. So I want to stylize this table. That's what the style tags are for. I want to change the style of this table. So how do I do that? Well, all I have to do is type in what I want to stylize. So I want to stylize the table that I have on my website. So I'm going to type table. And I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to introduce a set of these brackets, which you can press on your keyboard like that. So anything I put inside these brackets will stylize my table. So what could I do with my table? Well, let's just keep it simple. First, I could give my table a border. Notice how this table has lines dissecting each cell. So why don't I do that? So how do I introduce a border? Well, I type in border with a colon. And how big do I want this border? Well, I just want it to be 1 pixel big. So very, very thin border. What type of border do I want? I want a solid line. I don't want a dotted line, just a nice solid line. And what color do I want the border to be? Well, I want the border to be just black for now. So once you've typed in those 3 things, press semicolon and Control S to save. Now you'll notice I have a border literally around the table. What I can do, this is where it gets a little confusing. If I open up this table, what else do I have in this table? Well, I've got table rows, I've got table headers, I've got table data. So if I want all of those things to have a border, I don't just want to style my table. I put a comma, want to stylize my table, and I want to stylize each table header, so the top rows, the top cells, and I want to stylize each table data, so this cell, that cell, that cell, all these cells, so TD. Now what happens if you press Control S? Well, now everything gets a border. And by default, it's kind of weird that it does this. Actually, I'm just going to squish this over. By default, the border is a 1 pixel border on the inside and 1 pixel on the outside. So it kind of looks funny. So to get rid of that, you can hit it with the old border dash collapse colon collapse semicolon and press Control S to save. And now we get a much nicer looking border for our table. Just a single line. And the last thing we can do, see how everything's kind of cramped? It's all kind of tight. This table, there's a bit of space between things. So the last style I'll teach you about is padding. Padding colon. And padding lets you decide basically how much space in between your words to the outside of your tables or your table headers or your table data. So if we type padding 10 pixels, px, semicolon, we get a little breathing room in our table. And of course, you could bump those numbers up. But I don't know, whatever works, whatever looks best for you. I'll stick it at 10 there. Okay, I think that's enough for today. We covered a lot. So you learned how to do a table. And to make a table, you go row by row. So you make a table row, first row, second row, third row, fourth row. And you got briefly introduced to the style tag, which lets you make elements on your website. It lets you change, it lets you stylize the looks of them. So you can stylize anything. We just stylized tables today. But you could stylize anything that you made previously. You could stylize image tags, video tags, paragraph tags, heading tags, anything. But today we just introduced it with the table.